From the vast Eurasian steppes emerged a people whose journey would reshape the heart of Europe forever. The Magyars, ancestors of modern Hungarians, began their story in the shadowy forests near the Ural Mountains during the 6th and 7th centuries. Archaeological excavations reveal their distinctive burial practices, their sophisticated metalworking techniques, and ceramic traditions that would follow them westward across thousands of miles. But who were these mysterious people, and what drove them from their homeland toward the Carpathian Basin? The most substantial clue to Magyar origins lies in their language. Hungarian belongs to the Ugric branch of the Finno-Ugric family, sharing fundamental grammatical structures with the Khanty and Mansi languages of Western Siberia. Linguists have identified approximately 200 common root words between Hungarian and these Ob-Ugric languages, words for family relationships, body parts, natural phenomena, and essential tools. These linguistic connections aren't coincidental. They're echoes of a shared past, preserved across millennia of separation. In the Trans-Urals region, archaeologists discovered settlements exhibiting technological and cultural markers of early Magyar communities. The Kushnarenkovo and Karayakupovo cultures, spanning the 8th to 10th centuries, show particular relevance. Excavated sites reveal rectangular semi-subterranean dwellings with central hearths, construction methods that persisted among Magyar communities well into their Carpathian period. These weren't simple shelters. They were sophisticated structures measuring 4 to 6 meters in length, with walls reinforced by wooden posts and roofs covered with birch bark and earth. Inside these ancient homes, ironwork furnaces produced tools, weapons, and decorative objects bearing striking similarities to later Hungarian archaeological finds. The Magyars were master craftsmen long before they became conquerors. The material culture of these proto-Magyar communities reflected their adaptation to the forest-steppe environment. Bone and antler working reached remarkable sophistication, producing intricately carved horsebits, arrow points, and decorative elements that revealed both artistic sensibility and practical function. The discovery of numerous horse bones in archaeological contexts, alongside specialized equestrian equipment, confirms what would become central to Magyar identity. Horsemanship wasn't just a skill, it was their way of life. Unlike the pure nomadic pastoralists of the open steppes, these early Magyar communities practiced a mixed economy. They combined animal husbandry with limited agriculture, hunting, and fishing. This economic flexibility would prove crucial during their westward migration, allowing them to adapt to diverse environments and challenges. Picture these communities, semi-settled during winter months, mobile during summer pastoral activities, always maintaining connection to their horses and the freedom of movement. The tribal confederation system that governed early Magyar society represented sophisticated political adaptation. 7 major tribal groups formed the confederation's core: the Nyek, Magyar, Kurt Gyarmat, Tarjan, Geno, Ker, and Kessi tribes. Each tribe maintained its own territory, leadership hierarchy, and specialized functions within the broader confederation. The Magyar tribe, from which the name Magyar derives, appears to have held particular prominence, possibly serving as the primary military leadership group. This wasn't random organization. Each tribe brought specific expertise. The Nyek tribe specialized in metalworking, controlling iron ore deposits in the southern Ural foothills. The Geno tribe excelled in horse breeding, evidenced by concentrations of high-quality equestrian equipment in their burial sites. This specialization created interdependence while allowing each tribe to maintain distinct cultural characteristics and territorial autonomy. The Magyars understood something fundamental. Unity through diversity creates strength. Social structure within each tribe followed clan-based organization tracing lineage through both paternal and maternal lines. Extended family groups, typically 20 to 30 individuals across 3 generations, formed the basic social and economic units. These family clusters shared communal dwellings during winter months and dispersed into smaller units during summer pastoral activities. Archaeological evidence from the Bolshoi Tigani site reveals large communal structures capable of housing multiple families with separate storage areas for grain, tools, and valuable objects. Leadership operated through councils of elders, with positions determined by age, military prowess, and spiritual authority. But the discovery of elaborate burial sites containing weapons, horse gear, and ritual objects indicates something significant: the emergence of a warrior elite class. These high-status burials, distinguished by rich grave goods and prominent locations within cemetery complexes, suggest increasing social stratification during the 8th and 9th centuries. Power was becoming hereditary, concentrated in families who could maintain military equipment and horses. The relationship between Magyars and other peoples provides crucial insights into northern Eurasia's cultural landscape. The Khanty people inhabiting the Ob River Valley maintained trade relationships with Magyar communities through river networks connecting the Ural Mountains to western Siberian plains. Archaeological finds of Khanty-style pottery and metalwork in Magyar sites, alongside Magyar-influenced objects in Khanty territories, demonstrate active cultural exchange between related peoples. But the Mansi connection proved particularly significant in preserving shared mythological and religious traditions. Both Magyar and Mansi oral traditions contain remarkably similar creation myths, heroic epics, and supernatural beings. The Mansi bear cult, with elaborate rituals and taboos surrounding bear hunting, finds direct parallels in early Magyar religious practices. Bear claw amulets, ritualized bear skull deposits, and ceremonial bear-themed metalwork suggest common spiritual origins reaching back into the mists of time. Remember these connections. They'll help you understand how the Magyars maintained their identity even as they transformed from forest dwellers to steppe warriors. Early Magyar religious practices centered on shamanic traditions, integrating animistic beliefs with ancestor worship and natural phenomena reverence. Archaeological discoveries of shaman burial sites in the Ural region reveal sophisticated ritual equipment, elaborate headdresses decorated with bird feathers and metal ornaments, ceremonial drums with intricate carved designs, and collections of small metal objects representing various spirits and protective powers. These weren't primitive superstitions. They were sophisticated spiritual technologies for managing the uncertainties of life. The Magyar cosmological worldview divided existence into three interconnected realms: the upper world of sky spirits and celestial powers, the middle world of human habitation and natural forces, and the lower world of ancestors and chthonic deities. Shamans served as intermediaries between these realms, conducting healing rituals, divination practices, and community ceremonies that maintained spiritual balance and social cohesion. Their role extended far beyond religion. They were psychologists, doctors, and political advisors rolled into one. Bird symbolism played a central role in Magyar shamanic practices, with specific birds representing different spiritual powers and seasonal cycles. The crane held particular significance as a messenger between worlds, while the eagle symbolized military prowess and divine protection. Archaeological finds include numerous bird-shaped pendants, belt decorations, and ritual vessels demonstrating the pervasive influence of avian symbolism in Magyar spiritual life. Even more fascinating, the practice of sky burial, documented in several Ural region archaeological sites, reflects Magyar belief in the soul's journey to the upper world. Bodies were exposed on elevated platforms, allowing natural decomposition and scavenger consumption before bones were collected and buried with appropriate grave goods. This practice required specific ritual knowledge and timing, typically overseen by shamanic specialists, who determined proper seasonal and lunar conditions. Mythological traditions preserved in later Hungarian folklore retain clear connections to these ancient beliefs. The legend of the Tural bird, which guided the Magyar people during their migration, represents direct continuation of ancient bird spirit traditions. These weren't just stories, they were encoded cultural memory, preserving essential spiritual and practical knowledge across generations. If you're enjoying this journey through Magyar history, remember to subscribe to Flow of History for more deep dives into the civilizations that shaped our world. The pressure driving the Magyar Confederation westward from their Ural homeland emerged gradually during the 6th and 7th centuries. Competing nomadic groups expanded their territorial control across the Eurasian steppes, creating a domino effect of displaced peoples. The Bulgars, moving northward from the Black Sea region, began encroaching on Magyar hunting grounds and winter settlements. Simultaneously, the expanding Khazar Khaganate created new political dynamics that would fundamentally reshape the Magyar tribal system and territorial arrangements. Archaeological evidence from the Volga-Kama region indicates Magyar communities began establishing seasonal camps further west as early as 650 AD. Excavations at sites along the Balaya River reveal temporary settlements with characteristic Magyar pottery styles, alongside evidence of increased military preparation. Iron spearheads, battle axes, and reinforced horse bits appear in greater quantities during this period, suggesting communities were adapting to more frequent conflict and the demands of extended military campaigns. This wasn't a panicked flight. It was a calculated strategic repositioning. The initial phase of westward movement followed established river routes that had served as trade corridors for centuries. Magyar groups utilized the Kama River system to reach the Volga, then followed the great river southward toward Caspian Sea approaches. This riverine migration pattern allowed communities to maintain their traditional fishing and hunting practices while gradually adapting to the more open steppe environment that would dominate their later territorial holdings. Imagine the scene. Entire communities with their herds, their families, their accumulated possessions, moving along these ancient waterways toward an uncertain future. They couldn't know they were about to change European history forever. The seven-tribe confederation that emerged during this migration period represented sophisticated political adaptation to the challenges of coordinating large-scale movement across hostile territory. The Nyack tribe assumed responsibility for advanced scouting and route selection, their metalworking expertise proving valuable for maintaining weapons and equipment during extended campaigns. The Magyar tribe provided overall military leadership, while the Kurt-Gyarmat tribe specialized in rearguard protection and supply line security. Each tribe maintained distinct organizational structures reflecting their specialized roles. The Tarjan tribe developed particular expertise in horse breeding and cavalry tactics, managing the Confederation's remount system that kept mounted warriors supplied with fresh horses during long-distance operations. Archaeological finds from Tarjan burial sites include specialized horse breeding tools, elaborate bridle decorations, and evidence of selective breeding practices producing horses adapted to both steppe warfare and long-distance travel. The Geno tribe controlled diplomatic relations with other nomadic groups encountered during migration. Their leaders maintained knowledge of multiple languages and cultural protocols necessary for negotiating passage through territories controlled by Bulgar, Pecheneg, and other steppe confederations. Grave goods from Geno elite burials include Byzantine coins, Sasanian silver vessels, and other luxury items demonstrating their role in long-distance trade and diplomatic exchange. The Kare and Kessi tribes functioned as the Confederation's logistical backbone, managing food supplies, equipment maintenance, and complex arrangements required for moving entire communities across thousands of kilometers. The Kare tribe specialized in leather and textile production, creating portable shelters, clothing, and equipment necessary for nomadic life. They developed innovative techniques for producing lightweight, durable materials suitable for frequent transport and harsh weather conditions. This division of labor wasn't just efficient, it was what kept the Confederation alive during the grueling westward journey. The leadership structure governing this confederation evolved from earlier clan-based systems, but incorporated new elements adapted to demands of large-scale migration and military coordination. The position of sacred leader, or kende, emerged as a spiritual and ceremonial role, providing legitimacy and continuity for the confederation as a whole. The kende maintained responsibility for religious ceremonies, legal decisions, and preservation of tribal traditions, binding the 7 groups together despite geographical dispersion and specialized functions. Almos, whose name derives from the Hungarian word for dream, assumed the kende position during crucial early phases of westward migration. Historical sources suggest he possessed both shamanic authority inherited from traditional Magyar spiritual practices and diplomatic skills necessary for managing intertribal relations within the expanding confederation. Under his leadership, the 7 tribes developed standardized military protocols, shared legal codes, and common ceremonial practices, maintaining unity while allowing individual tribal autonomy. The military commander position, known as Gyula, handled tactical decisions, battlefield leadership, and day-to-day security arrangements for migrating communities. This dual leadership system reflected influence from the Khazar Khaganate, where similar divisions between sacred and military authority had proven effective for managing diverse tribal confederations across vast territories. The Magyar adoption of this system demonstrates their pragmatic approach to political innovation and their ability to integrate useful practices from neighboring cultures. They weren't blindly following tradition, they were actively experimenting, adapting, surviving. The relationship between the Magyar Confederation and the Khazar Khaganate developed through complex series of conflicts, alliances, and mutual accommodations spanning nearly 2 centuries. Initial encounters occurred along Volga River approaches, where Magyar advance groups encountered Khazar patrol forces sometime around 670 AD. Rather than engaging in prolonged warfare, both sides recognized potential benefits of cooperation, leading to agreements that allowed Magyar settlement in exchange for military service. The Khazar system of governance impressed Magyar leaders with its effectiveness in managing diverse ethnic groups while maintaining centralized authority over strategic resources and trade routes. The Khazar Khagan held supreme ceremonial authority but delegated practical governance to the Bek, who commanded military forces and administered territorial holdings. This division of responsibilities allowed the Khazar state to expand rapidly while incorporating new populations without forcing complete cultural assimilation. Magyar military units began serving alongside Khazar forces in campaigns against Arab expansion in the Caucasus region during the early 8th century. These joint operations exposed Magyar warriors to advanced siege techniques, coordinated cavalry tactics, and logistical systems supporting large-scale military campaigns across diverse terrain. The experience gained through Khazar military service proved invaluable for later Magyar operations in Central Europe. They were learning the art of empire from one of the most sophisticated states of the age. The adoption of Khazar administrative practices extended beyond military organization to include legal systems, trade regulations, and diplomatic protocols. Magyar leaders learned to manage relationships with sedentary agricultural populations, urban commercial centers, and competing nomadic groups through techniques developed within the multi-ethnic Khazar state. These skills became essential as the Magyar Confederation continued its westward movement into regions with complex existing political structures. They were becoming not just warriors, but statesmen. The Magyar military system that evolved during the migration period combined traditional steppe warfare techniques with innovations adapted to specific challenges of coordinated long-distance movement. The basic tactical unit consisted of 10 mounted warriors organized around extended family relationships, ensuring unit cohesion and mutual support during combat operations. 10 such units formed a century under command of an experienced warrior who typically held hereditary leadership status within his tribal group. Magyar warriors carried composite bows constructed from horn, wood, and sinew, providing both power and accuracy at ranges up to 300 meters. The bow construction process required specialized knowledge of material properties and assembly techniques carefully guarded within warrior families. Archaeological finds reveal Magyar bows developed regional variations adapted to different combat situations, with shorter bows for close combat and longer versions for maximum range and penetration power. The arrowheads used by Magyar archers showed remarkable diversity adapted to specific tactical requirements. Broad-headed hunting arrows proved effective against unarmored opponents and horses, while narrow bodkin points could penetrate mail armor and leather protection. Whistling arrows served for communication and psychological warfare, their distinctive sound coordinating unit movements and demoralizing enemy forces during large-scale engagements. Magyar cavalry tactics emphasized mobility, deception, and coordinated maneuvers, maximizing their advantages over less mobile opponents. The feigned retreat became a signature Magyar tactic, drawing enemy forces into pursuit before wheeling around to attack their flanks and rear with concentrated archery. This maneuver required extensive training and perfect coordination between multiple units, demonstrating the sophisticated level of military organization achieved by the Confederation. These weren't barbarian raiders. They were professional soldiers executing complex tactical operations with precision that would make modern special forces proud. The horse herds supporting Magyar military operations represented one of their most valuable strategic assets. Each warrior maintained multiple mounts, ensuring fresh horses were available during extended campaigns. The Magyar breeding program produced horses adapted to carrying armored riders across long distances while maintaining speed and agility necessary for steppe warfare tactics. These horses, smaller than later medieval war horses, but exceptionally hardy and intelligent, could survive on poor pasture and required minimal care during campaign conditions. The nomadic lifestyle enabling successful migration across vast distances required sophisticated knowledge of seasonal patterns, grazing resources, and water sources throughout the Pontic-Caspian steppes. Magyar communities developed detailed mental maps of migration routes, including information about pasture quality, seasonal weather patterns, and locations of friendly or hostile populations along major travel corridors. This wasn't wandering. It was precisely calibrated movement following generations of accumulated environmental knowledge. The portable material culture supporting nomadic life achieved remarkable efficiency, balancing functionality with transportability. Magyar craftsmen produced collapsible furniture, modular housing components, and multi-purpose tools that could be quickly assembled or disassembled as communities moved between seasonal camps. Felt-making techniques produced lightweight waterproof materials for clothing and shelter, providing excellent insulation while remaining easy to transport and maintain. The seasonal migration cycle followed patterns established over generations of steppe life, with communities moving to summer pastures in the north and winter camps in more protected southern locations. The timing of these movements required careful coordination with weather patterns, pasture conditions, and movements of other nomadic groups sharing the same territories. Magyar leaders developed sophisticated systems for communicating seasonal plans and coordinating movements across scattered tribal groups. Every aspect of their existence was optimized for mobility, for survival, for the constant movement that defined their world. The dietary requirements of nomadic communities centered on animal products, supplemented by seasonal gathering and limited agricultural activities. Mare's milk processed into various fermented beverages provided essential nutrition during travel periods when fresh food was scarce. Dried meat prepared using techniques preserving protein while minimizing weight formed the staple food for long-distance journeys. Archaeological evidence shows Magyar communities also maintained knowledge of edible plants and seasonal fruits that could supplement their diet during migration periods. The westward movement through the Pontic-Caspian steppes brought the Magyar Confederation into contact with numerous other nomadic groups, each controlling specific territories and maintaining distinct cultural practices. The Pechenegs, occupying lands between the Don and Dnieper rivers, represented both potential allies and dangerous competitors for the same grazing grounds and trade routes. Initial encounters between Magyar and Pecheneg groups resulted in a series of small-scale conflicts testing the military capabilities of both confederations. The Bulgar presence in the region created additional complications for Magyar territorial expansion. Bulgar groups had established semi-permanent settlements along major rivers and controlled key crossing points that Magyar communities needed for their seasonal migrations. The resulting negotiations and occasional conflicts shaped Magyar diplomatic practices and military tactics as they learned to navigate the complex political landscape of the western steppes. Little did they know that these skills, honed through countless negotiations and conflicts, would prove essential when they finally reached their ultimate destination, the Carpathian Basin. The strategic decision to abandon the Pontic-Caspian steppes and venture westward into the Carpathian Basin emerged from a convergence of military pressures and diplomatic opportunities that fundamentally altered the trajectory of Magyar history. By 890 AD, the Pecheneg Confederation had consolidated control over vast territories between the Don and Dnieper rivers, systematically pushing Magyar tribal groups away from their traditional winter camps and summer pastures. Archaeological evidence from sites along the Dnieper indicates Magyar settlements were abandoned hastily during this period, with valuable metal objects buried in cache pits never recovered by their owners. The Pecheneg military advantage stemmed from their superior numbers and alliance networks with other nomadic groups throughout the region. Pecheneg forces, estimated at over 100,000 warriors distributed across multiple tribal divisions, could concentrate overwhelming force against individual Magyar tribal territories. The Magyar Confederation, despite its sophisticated military organization and proven combat effectiveness, could field approximately 20,000 mounted warriors across all 7 tribes, making direct confrontation with the Pecheneg alliance strategically impossible. Árpád's emergence as paramount military leader of the Magyar Confederation occurred during these critical years when traditional leadership structures proved inadequate for addressing existential threats. The son of Almos, Árpád possessed both inherited legitimacy from his father's Kende status and demonstrated military competence earned through successful campaigns against Bulgar and Pecheneg raiding parties. His assumption of supreme command represented a consolidation of sacred and military authority that would prove essential for coordinating the complex logistics of large-scale migration and conquest. The man who would lead his people into their new homeland was stepping onto history's stage. Everything that came before was preparation. Everything that followed would be transformation. The initial reconnaissance of the Carpathian Basin began around 892 AD, when Magyar scouting parties operating under Árpád's direct command crossed the Carpathian passes to assess the military situation in Pannonia. These advance forces, typically consisting of 200 to 300 mounted warriors organized in small, highly mobile units, gathered crucial intelligence about the political fragmentation and military weaknesses of the region's existing powers. The scouts reported that Great Moravia, despite its territorial extent and fortified centers, maintained only limited military forces in its eastern provinces. The strategic value of the Carpathian Basin became immediately apparent to Magyar military planners. The region's natural boundaries provided defensive advantages absent in the open steppes, with the Carpathian Mountains forming a protective barrier against eastern nomadic incursions, while the Danube River system offered both transportation routes and defensive positions. The extensive river valleys contained rich agricultural lands capable of supporting both the Magyar population and their essential horse herds. while numerous salt deposits provided valuable trade commodities that could finance military operations and diplomatic initiatives. The existing population distribution within the basin presented opportunities for Magyar settlement requiring minimal displacement of established communities. Slavic tribal groups occupied scattered agricultural settlements throughout the region, but lacked unified political organization or coordinated military capabilities. The remnant Avar population, concentrated in specific river valleys and hill country, had been significantly reduced by previous conflicts and posed no serious military threat to Magyar occupation forces. The diplomatic framework facilitating Magyar entry into the Carpathian Basin emerged from Byzantine strategic calculations regarding the balance of power in Central Europe. Emperor Leo VI recognized that Magyar military capabilities could serve Byzantine interests by weakening Great Moravia, which had been expanding its influence southward toward Byzantine territorial claims in the Balkans. The Byzantine court initiated contact with Árpád through diplomatic missions offering military cooperation and territorial concessions in exchange for Magyar attacks on Moravian positions. The pieces were falling into place for one of history's great conquests. The formal alliance between the Byzantine Empire and the Magyar Confederation included specific provisions for coordinated military operations against Great Moravia. Byzantine naval forces would support Magyar river crossings along the Danube while providing supplies and equipment through established trade networks. In return, Magyar forces would target Moravian strongholds in eastern Pannonia and prevent Moravian expansion toward Byzantine territories in the south. The initial phase of the Magyar conquest began in spring 895 AD with coordinated attacks on Moravian border fortifications along the upper Tisza River valley. Magyar forces, organized into three main armies totaling approximately 15,000 warriors, crossed the Carpathian passes simultaneously at Vereka, Tölgyes, and Radna. This multi-pronged approach prevented Moravian forces from concentrating their defenses while allowing Magyar commanders to exploit local terrain advantages and maintain communication between advancing columns. The Moravian military response revealed critical weaknesses in their defensive strategy and force structure. Moravian armies consisted primarily of heavily armored cavalry supported by infantry levies drawn from agricultural settlements. While effective in set-piece battles on favorable terrain, these forces lacked the mobility and logistical flexibility necessary for countering Magyar hit-and-run tactics across the region's diverse geographical features. The Moravians were fighting yesterday's war. The Magyars were inventing tomorrow's. The siege of Ungvar demonstrated Magyar adaptation of traditional steppe warfare techniques to challenges of reducing fortified positions. Rather than attempting direct assault against fortress walls, Magyar forces implemented systematic blockade, cutting off supply lines and preventing relief forces from reaching the garrison. Continuous harassment by Magyar archers prevented defenders from maintaining effective watch schedules or conducting repair work on damaged fortifications. The psychological impact proved as significant as direct military effectiveness. The distinctive sound of thousands of arrows striking wooden palisades and stone walls, combined with war cries and horn signals of coordinating Magyar units, created an atmosphere of constant threat, demoralizing defending forces. Many Moravian garrison commanders abandoned their positions after brief resistance rather than endure prolonged siege conditions. Terror, the Magyars understood, was a weapon as effective as any bow. The displacement of existing populations during the Magyar conquest followed patterns reflecting both military necessity and pragmatic integration policies. Slavic agricultural communities that submitted peacefully to Magyar authority retained their lands and continued traditional farming practices under Magyar protection. These arrangements provided Magyar forces with reliable food supplies while maintaining productive agricultural systems supporting the region's economic stability. The integration of Avar populations proceeded through different mechanisms adapted to their semi-nomadic lifestyle and existing territorial arrangements. Many Avar groups possessed valuable knowledge of local geography, seasonal patterns, and resource locations, proving essential for Magyar settlement planning. The incorporation of Avar warriors into Magyar military units provided additional manpower while ensuring their continued loyalty through participation in successful military operations. The remnant Roman population, concentrated in fortified towns and trading centers, presented unique challenges and opportunities for Magyar administration. These communities possessed technical skills in metalwork, construction, and administrative practices that Magyar leaders recognized as valuable for establishing permanent settlements and maintaining trade relationships with neighboring regions. The preservation of Roman commercial networks provided Magyar forces with access to luxury goods, military equipment, and diplomatic contacts throughout Central Europe. The Magyars weren't just conquerors, they were state builders. Recognizing that different populations required different approaches, that sustainable rule required accommodation and integration, not just domination. The transition from nomadic to semi-sedentary lifestyle required fundamental changes in Magyar social organization and economic practices. The establishment of permanent winter quarters necessitated new construction techniques adapted to local materials and climate conditions. Magyar builders learned to work with wood and stone rather than portable materials that had served nomadic communities, developing architectural styles combining steppe traditions with local building practices. The management of horse herds in confined spaces of river valleys and agricultural regions required modifications to traditional pastoral practices. Magyar herders developed rotational grazing systems, preventing overuse of limited pasture lands while maintaining large horse populations necessary for military operations. The construction of seasonal shelters and feeding facilities represented significant investments in permanent infrastructure, marking the beginning of territorial attachment rather than seasonal occupation. The territorial organization that emerged during the early conquest period reflected both military requirements and traditional tribal structures. Each of the 7 tribes received specific geographical areas, providing access to essential resources while maintaining defensible boundaries against potential external threats. The Nyek tribe established control over the Upper Tisa Valley, where their metalwork skills proved valuable for establishing weapon production centers and maintaining military equipment. The Magyar tribal territory encompassed the Central Plains region between the Danube and Tisa rivers, reflecting their continued role as the Confederation's primary military leadership group. This area provided extensive grazing lands for horse herds while offering strategic positions for coordinating military operations throughout the basin. The concentration of early Magyar burial sites in this region indicates its importance as the Confederation's political and ceremonial center. The Magyars had found their new homeland, but transforming from nomadic warriors into rulers of a settled kingdom would require changes even more dramatic than their epic migration. The real challenge wasn't conquest, it was building something that would last. The administrative systems governing conquered territories combined Magyar tribal customs with practical adaptations to local conditions and populations. Magyar leaders established networks of fortified centers serving both military and administrative functions, controlling key river crossings, mountain passes, and agricultural regions. These strongholds, typically constructed on elevated positions with natural defensive advantages, housed Magyar garrison forces while providing secure storage for tribute collections and military supplies. The legal framework regulating relationships between Magyar conquerors and subject populations drew from traditional steppe practices of incorporating defeated groups through negotiated agreements rather than systematic displacement or elimination. Slavic communities accepting Magyar authority retained their internal governance structures while acknowledging Magyar military supremacy and tribute obligations. This approach minimized resistance while preserving productive agricultural systems essential for supporting the growing Magyar population. The economic transformation accompanying territorial conquest involved establishment of new trade relationships and resource exploitation systems adapted to the basin's geographical features and existing commercial networks. Magyar leaders recognized the strategic value of controlling Danube River trade routes connecting Central European markets with Byzantine commercial centers. The imposition of transit taxes and trade regulations provided steady revenue streams supporting military operations and administrative expenses. The integration of local craft production into Magyar economic systems proceeded through apprenticeship arrangements and technological exchange benefiting both communities. Magyar metalworkers learned advanced techniques for producing agricultural tools and construction materials, while local craftsmen gained access to steppe technologies for leatherworking and horse equipment production. These knowledge transfers accelerated development of specialized production centers throughout Magyar territories. The Carpathian Basin was becoming not just Magyar territory, but a melting pot where steppe traditions fused with Central European civilization. Subscribe to Flow of History to continue this journey through the ages. We're just getting to the transformation that would create modern Hungary. The military campaigns against remaining Moravian strongholds continued throughout 896 AD as Magyar forces consolidated control over eastern Pannonia and established forward positions for potential expansion westward. The systematic reduction of Moravian border fortifications required coordinated siege operations, demonstrating Magyar adaptation to positional warfare, while maintaining their traditional mobility advantages for strategic movement and supply line protection. The capture of key river crossings along the Danube and its major tributaries provided Magyar forces with control over the region's primary transportation network. These strategic positions enabled rapid deployment of military units to threatened areas while preventing enemy forces from coordinating effective counterattacks. The establishment of Magyar naval capabilities, utilizing captured Moravian vessels and local shipbuilding expertise, extended their operational reach throughout the river system. But the consolidation of Magyar control over the Carpathian Basin created unprecedented challenges demanding fundamental transformations in political organization, religious practices, and diplomatic relationships with neighboring Christian powers. The traditional tribal structure and pagan religious system that had served effectively during the conquest period were increasingly inadequate for governing a settled population and maintaining stable relationships with the emerging European political order. Grand Prince Géza, who assumed leadership of the Magyar Confederation around 970 AD, recognized that fundamental transformation was necessary. His strategic assessment revealed both opportunities and vulnerabilities requiring careful navigation. The Confederation controlled vast territories rich in agricultural potential and mineral resources, with established trade routes connecting Byzantine, German, and Polish commercial networks. However, this territorial success had also attracted attention of powerful Christian neighbors who viewed pagan Magyar raids as both economic threats and religious challenges requiring systematic response. The Holy Roman Empire under Otto I had demonstrated its capacity for large-scale military intervention in Central Europe through successful campaigns against Magyar raiding parties during the 950s. The decisive defeat at the Battle of Lechfeld in 955 AD had effectively ended Magyar expansion westward while exposing limitations of traditional steppe warfare tactics against well-organized Christian armies fighting on familiar terrain with superior logistical support. Géza's diplomatic initiatives toward Western Christianity began with careful assessment of political advantages that religious conversion might provide for Magyar territorial security and commercial development. The establishment of formal relationships with Christian rulers offered potential protection against hostile neighbors, while opening access to advanced administrative techniques, military technologies, and economic systems that had enabled Christian kingdoms to achieve unprecedented levels of political stability and material prosperity. The initial contacts with Christian missionaries occurred through Hungarian participation in diplomatic missions to the German court, where Magyar representatives observed sophisticated ceremonial protocols and administrative systems supporting imperial authority. These experiences convinced Géza that adoption of Christian religious practices and political structures could strengthen Magyar control over their territories while providing legitimacy for hereditary succession systems, ensuring political continuity beyond traditional tribal leadership arrangements. The most dramatic transformation in Magyar history was about to begin, not through conquest, but through faith. The process of religious transformation began with Géza's personal conversion around 975 AD, conducted by Bishop Pilgrim of Passau under auspices of the Holy Roman Empire. This ceremony represented more than individual religious commitment. It established formal diplomatic relationships with Christian Europe while signaling Magyar willingness to abandon raiding practices that had characterized their earlier interactions with neighboring kingdoms. The conversion also provided Géza with access to Christian administrative advisors who possessed essential knowledge of legal systems, taxation methods, and bureaucratic procedures necessary for governing complex territorial holdings. The integration of Christian religious practices with existing Magyar political structures required careful balance between innovation and tradition. Géza maintained many traditional ceremonial roles and tribal consultation processes while introducing Christian symbols, architectural elements, and liturgical practices demonstrating his commitment to religious transformation. The construction of the first Christian churches in Magyar territories utilized local craftsmen working under direction of foreign architects, creating hybrid architectural styles combining Byzantine and Western European design elements with traditional Magyar decorative motifs. The establishment of ecclesiastical infrastructure proceeded gradually to avoid provoking resistance from tribal leaders and traditional religious practitioners who retained significant influence within Magyar society. Géza authorized construction of monastery foundations serving both religious and educational functions, providing centers for training Magyar clergy while preserving important manuscripts and developing administrative capabilities necessary for territorial governance. These monastic communities also served as agricultural innovation centers, introducing advanced farming techniques and crop varieties, increasing agricultural productivity throughout Magyar territories. István, Stephen, Géza's son, inherited both the political authority of his father and the complex challenges of completing the religious and administrative transformation that Géza had initiated. Born around 975 AD, and raised within the Christian court environment his father had established, Stephen possessed both traditional Magyar legitimacy through his Árpád lineage and Christian education preparing him for leadership within the emerging European political system. The coronation of Stephen as the first king of Hungary represents one of the most significant political transformations in Central European history. The ceremony, conducted on either January 1st, 1000 AD, or January 1st, 1001 AD, according to different historical sources, involved presentation of a crown sent by Pope Sylvester II, establishing Hungary as an independent Christian kingdom with direct papal recognition rather than subordination to the Holy Roman Empire. The papal crown represented more than ceremonial recognition. It provided Stephen with religious authority transcending traditional tribal leadership structures while establishing Hungary's position as an independent Christian kingdom rather than a German imperial dependency. This papal relationship offered protection against potential German territorial claims while providing access to international Christian diplomatic networks that could support Hungarian interests in regional conflicts and commercial negotiations. The coronation ceremony itself combined Christian liturgical elements with adapted Magyar traditional practices, creating new royal rituals, emphasizing both religious legitimacy and cultural continuity. Stephen's acceptance of the crown occurred within a newly constructed basilica, demonstrating Magyar commitment to Christian architectural traditions while incorporating decorative elements reflecting traditional Magyar artistic styles and symbolic systems. From pagan warrior confederation to Christian kingdom, the transformation was complete. But the real work of building a medieval state was just beginning. The administrative reforms accompanying Stephen's coronation transformed the fundamental structure of Hungarian governance from tribal confederation to centralized monarchy. The establishment of the county system, known as vármegye, created territorial administrative units replacing traditional tribal boundaries with geographical divisions designed to facilitate efficient governance and resource collection. Each county received a royal administrator, the Ispán, who possessed both civil and military authority within his designated territory. The Ispán system represented revolutionary departure from traditional Magyar political organization. Rather than inheriting authority through tribal lineage or achieving leadership through military prowess and council recognition, county administrators served at royal appointment and maintained their positions through demonstrated competence in tax collection, judicial administration, and military organization. This system enabled Stephen to establish direct royal control over local governance while reducing autonomous authority of traditional tribal leaders. The integration of tribal structures into the new feudal organization required careful negotiation with existing Magyar elites who possessed both military capabilities and popular support within their traditional territories. Stephen addressed these challenges through combination of strategic appointments, incorporating tribal leaders into the new administrative system and territorial arrangements, preserving some traditional tribal holdings while establishing clear royal supremacy over all Hungarian territories. The county system also facilitated systematic Christianization of Hungarian society by providing administrative frameworks for establishing churches, appointing clergy, and enforcing Christian legal codes throughout the kingdom. Each county received ecclesiastical organization paralleling civil administration, with bishops and abbots working alongside Ispáns to implement royal policies and maintain social order according to Christian principles and Hungarian royal authority. The military reforms accompanying administrative reorganization transformed the Hungarian army from tribal confederation of mounted warriors into feudal military system based on territorial obligations and royal service requirements. The new system maintained Magyar cavalry traditions while incorporating Western European military technologies and tactical systems, proving more effective for defending fixed territories rather than conducting mobile raiding campaigns. The establishment of royal fortifications throughout Hungarian territories provided strategic defensive positions while serving as administrative centers for county governance. These fortified complexes, constructed using both traditional Magyar defensive techniques and advanced European siege-resistant designs, housed county administrators, military garrisons, and ecclesiastical establishments representing royal authority throughout the kingdom. The founding of monasteries represented a crucial element in Stephen's strategy for consolidating Christian transformation while developing educational and administrative capabilities necessary for effective royal governance. The establishment of the Benedictine Abbey of Pannonhalma around 1001 AD created the first major monastic center in Hungary, serving as both religious foundation and educational institution, training Hungarian clergy and administrators in Latin literacy, legal procedures, and administrative techniques. These weren't just religious institutions, they were the universities, the bureaucratic training centers, the cultural engines of the new Hungarian kingdom. The monastic communities established during Stephen's reign served multiple functions beyond their primary religious purposes. These institutions preserved and copied important manuscripts, maintained schools for educating Hungarian nobility, and developed agricultural innovations increasing productivity throughout the kingdom. The monasteries also served as centers for diplomatic correspondence and international communication, maintaining relationships with religious institutions throughout Christian Europe. The cultural transformation from paganism to Christianity involved complex negotiations between traditional Magyar religious practices and Christian theological requirements. Rather than attempting complete elimination of traditional beliefs and practices, Stephen's religious policies encouraged gradual transformation, incorporating acceptable traditional elements within Christian frameworks while systematically replacing incompatible practices with Christian alternatives. The preservation of traditional Hungarian folklore and oral traditions within Christian contexts enabled cultural continuity while supporting religious transformation. Traditional Magyar heroic narratives received Christian reinterpretation, maintaining their cultural significance while eliminating pagan religious elements conflicting with Christian doctrine. This approach reduced resistance to religious change while preserving important cultural identity markers distinguishing Hungarian Christianity from neighboring religious traditions. The development of Hungarian Christian art and architecture reflected this synthesis of traditional and imported cultural elements. Church construction projects utilized traditional Magyar decorative motifs and artistic techniques while following Christian architectural requirements and liturgical needs. The resulting artistic style created distinctively Hungarian Christian cultural expressions, supporting both religious transformation and cultural identity preservation. The legal reforms implemented during Stephen's reign established comprehensive legal codes combining Christian moral principles with traditional Magyar legal customs and practical administrative requirements. The creation of written legal codes provided consistent judicial standards throughout Hungarian territories while establishing clear royal authority over legal proceedings and punishment systems. Stephen wasn't just building a kingdom, he was creating a civilization. The death of Stephen I in 1038 AD marked the end of the foundational period of Hungarian Christianity and royal authority, yet it also initiated decades of dynastic instability, testing the resilience of institutional frameworks he had established. The succession crisis following Stephen's death exposed fundamental tensions between traditional Magyar tribal loyalties and the new Christian monarchical system as competing claimants to the throne drew support from different factions within Hungarian society. The rebellion that erupted in 1046 AD demonstrated both the fragility and underlying strength of the Christian Hungarian state. Led by András and Levente, sons of Vazul, who had been blinded on Stephen's orders to prevent succession challenges, the uprising initially appeared to threaten complete collapse of Christian royal authority. Pagan elements within Hungarian society, particularly in rural areas where traditional religious practices had persisted despite official Christianization, saw the rebellion as opportunity to restore pre-Christian political and religious systems. However, the ultimate success of András in establishing stable royal authority while maintaining Christian institutions revealed the extent to which the new political and religious systems had taken root within Hungarian society. András demonstrated remarkable political skill in balancing competing demands from traditional Magyar elites, Christian ecclesiastical authorities, and neighboring Christian rulers who monitored Hungarian affairs with considerable concern about potential pagan restoration. The reign of Béla I, András's brother, witnessed the first systematic efforts to expand Hungarian territorial control beyond the original conquest boundaries established during the Árpád settlement period. The acquisition of territories in modern-day Croatia and Slavonia represented more than simple territorial aggrandizement. These conquests provided Hungary with access to Adriatic sea trade routes while establishing buffer zones against Byzantine expansion northward from the Balkans. The military campaigns securing these territorial gains demonstrated significant evolution in Hungarian warfare capabilities from the original steppe cavalry tactics that had characterized the conquest period. Hungarian armies now incorporated heavy cavalry units equipped with advanced armor and weapon systems comparable to those employed by Western European feudal forces. The development of siege warfare capabilities, including construction and deployment of catapults, battering rams, and other mechanical devices, enabled Hungarian forces to reduce fortified positions that would have been impregnable to traditional Magyar mounted archery tactics. Ladislaus I ascended to the Hungarian throne in 1077 AD during a period when the kingdom faced unprecedented external pressures and internal challenges demanding exceptional leadership capabilities. The Great Schism between Eastern and Western Christianity had created complex diplomatic situations throughout Central Europe, while the investiture controversy between the Pope and Holy Roman Emperor generated political instability affecting all Christian kingdoms in the region. Ladislaus possessed both military competence necessary for defending Hungarian territories and diplomatic sophistication required for navigating these treacherous international political waters. His reign would be remembered as a golden age, a time when Hungary emerged as a major European power capable of influencing events far beyond its borders. The territorial expansion during Ladislaus's reign represented the culmination of Hungarian military and political development during the early medieval period. The conquest of Slavonia provided Hungary with control over crucial river transportation routes connecting Central European markets with Balkan commercial centers. The systematic fortification of these newly acquired territories involved construction of stone castles and fortified towns, demonstrating Hungarian mastery of advanced military architecture and engineering techniques adapted from Byzantine and Western European models. The establishment of Hungarian control over Transylvania during this period involved complex negotiations with existing Saxon communities that had settled in the region under earlier political arrangements. Rather than displacing these established populations, Ladislaus implemented integration policies preserving Saxon legal privileges and commercial rights while establishing clear Hungarian royal authority over the territory. The Saxons brought valuable mining expertise and craft production capabilities, significantly enhancing Hungarian economic development, particularly in extraction and processing of silver, gold, and other mineral resources abundant in the Carpathian mountain regions. Matthias Corvinus, John Hunyadi's son, inherited both his father's military legacy and complex challenges of governing Hungary during a period when Ottoman pressure continued threatening the kingdom's territorial integrity, while internal political divisions undermined unified resistance efforts. His election as King of Hungary in 1458, achieved through support of lesser nobility and popular acclamation rather than traditional magnate endorsement, reflected both recognition of Hunyadi military achievements and practical assessment that effective royal leadership required proven military competence rather than merely aristocratic lineage or foreign dynastic claims. The military reforms Matthias implemented during his reign transformed Hungarian armed forces from traditional feudal levy systems into professional military organizations capable of sustained operations against Ottoman forces while maintaining internal security and territorial defense against multiple potential threats. The creation of the Black Army, a permanent professional force numbering approximately 28,000 men at its peak strength, provided Hungary with military capabilities exceeding those of most contemporary European kingdoms while establishing tactical flexibility necessary for confronting diverse operational challenges across the kingdom's extensive frontiers. The Black Army represented the pinnacle of medieval Hungarian military achievement, a standing professional force that could match the best armies in Europe, equipped with advanced weapons, trained in the latest tactics, and maintained through systematic taxation and administration. It made Hungary a power to be reckoned with. But this military machine was expensive, requiring constant funding and sophisticated administrative systems to maintain. The death of Matthias Corvinus in 1490 marked the beginning of Hungary's decline as a major European power. The Black Army began to disintegrate almost immediately as the Hungarian nobility's traditional resistance to royal centralization reasserted itself with devastating consequences for the kingdom's defensive capabilities. The professional soldiers who had formed the core of this elite force found themselves without regular pay as the royal treasury, depleted by decades of military expenditure and lacking Matthias's exceptional administrative efficiency, could no longer sustain the enormous costs of maintaining a permanent army. The succession of Vladislaus II, elected by the Hungarian nobility precisely because of his perceived weakness and willingness to restore traditional aristocratic privileges, marked a fundamental shift away from the centralized royal authority that had enabled effective resistance against Ottoman expansion. The new king, already ruling Bohemia and faced with the impossible task of governing two kingdoms with conflicting interests and limited resources, proved incapable of maintaining the military preparedness and administrative efficiency that had characterized Matthias's reign. Meanwhile, the Ottoman Empire was experiencing unprecedented military and administrative development under Sultan Selim I and subsequently Suleiman I, whose systematic reforms had created the most efficient military machine in the contemporary world. The Janissary Corps had been expanded and modernized with advanced firearms training, while the Sipahi cavalry system had been refined to provide rapid deployment capabilities across the empire's vast territories. The Battle of Mohacs, fought on August 29, 1526, represented the catastrophic culmination of Hungary's decline. The Hungarian army, numbering only approximately 25,000 men, faced an Ottoman force of approximately 100,000 warriors, including 10,000 Janissaries, equipped with advanced firearms and substantial artillery trains. The battle was a massacre. King Louis II died during the fighting or while fleeing the battlefield, eliminating unified Hungarian command. Contemporary accounts describe fields covered with Hungarian dead, including most of the kingdom's senior military commanders and noble leadership. The immediate aftermath of Mohacs saw Ottoman forces advancing rapidly toward Buda, while Hungarian survivors fled northward in complete disorder. The systematic destruction of Hungarian military capability during the battle eliminated organized opposition throughout central Hungary while creating panic among civilian populations. Sultan Suleiman's entry into Buda on September 10, 1526, marked the effective end of independent Hungarian royal authority over the kingdom's central territories. The tripartite division of Hungarian territories that emerged following Mohacs reflected both Ottoman strategic priorities and political realities created by competing claims to Hungarian succession. The Central Plains region came under direct Ottoman administration. The northern and western territories acknowledged Habsburg authority under Ferdinand I. The eastern territories emerged as the Principality of Transylvania under nominal independence while acknowledging Ottoman suzerainty. For over 150 years, Hungary would remain divided, its people struggling to maintain their identity under foreign rule. The Ottoman occupation brought both oppression and unexpected cultural synthesis. Hungarian nobles who accommodated Ottoman rule preserved their estates. Christian communities maintained their religious practices under the millet system. Cultural traditions survived through ecclesiastical institutions and private education. The long Turkish War of 1593-1606 and subsequent conflicts gradually pushed back Ottoman control. The relief of Vienna in 1683 by Polish King John Sobieski marked the turning point. The Battle of Mohacs in 1687, fought near the site of the 1526 disaster, completed the symbolic reversal. The Peace of Karlowitz in 1699 formalized European territorial gains, restoring Hungarian territories to Habsburg control. The Austro-Hungarian Compromise of 1867 would eventually recognize Hungarian autonomy within a dual monarchy structure, creating constitutional arrangements preserving Hungarian cultural traditions while providing security through integration into the broader Austrian imperial system. The Magyar people's remarkable journey from Eurasian steppes through medieval kingdom, Ottoman occupation, and Habsburg restoration to modern statehood demonstrates the enduring power of cultural identity and political determination. From the Ural Mountains to the heart of Europe, from pagan warriors to Christian kings, from conquest to survival to Renaissance, this is the eternal flow of history. Sleep well, and remember, peoples may be conquered, but their spirits remain unconquerable.